to watch this. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to record this. And now that we've gotten through some of the particulars, for those of you that don't know enough about the Fidbox and Hmbox, ultimately these are the pre-installation and post-installation wood flooring devices. Now, I can easily say that the Hmbox isn't just for the wood flooring application that we most of us know. It's also for the epoxy world, the adhesive world, and there's been some things that have changed. And I've been working with Europe, and now um, further into this discussion, you're going to see what's changed. But so the Hmbox, Fidbox, as you can see, the Hmbox uses cellular technology to um, in order to accept the data. And whereas the Fidbox uses Bluetooth technology, which is a little different. The Hmbox battery lasts 2 years. You can change out the battery. The Fidbox battery lasts 6 years. However, the Fidbox is installed directly into the wood floor. So um, let me just get moving. And so, one of the things I think that anyone that's ever taken a journalism class, we always have the who, what, where, why, and how. And I'm hoping that we can answer most of these W questions for you. And without boring you and going through this, I can give anybody or send anyone this presentation so you have it for future use. So who, anyone that needs to determine the temperature and relative humidity, which directly affects building materials. What, the Hmbox is the pre-installation digital measuring device. Where, the area where a contractor would like to determine the readiness for installation of all construction-related products that are prone to moisture-related issues. So I'm hoping that everyone understands that um, it's not just the wood flooring industry that has products that are susceptible to moisture, but there is the cabinetry industry, the architectural molding industry, and in some cases, some of the drywall industry. So why? This device will eliminate the uncertain nature of the building industry by providing accurate temperature and relative humidity readings that flag the readiness of any type of subfloor configuration. How? By using a digital data logger that transmits data via cellular connection every 12 hours, one per hour, right? That's where the Hmbox is different than the Fidbox. It actually takes a reading every hour. And what reading does it take? It takes a subfloor reading of temperature and relative humidity and an ambient condition relative humidity and temperature. Now, we're going to show today, one of the things you'll be able to see too is I'm going to show everyone how to create a report from the software once we get to that point. Who, this is one of those things. I've been in every type of commercial and residential setting where these devices are being used on a daily basis. I think that what's really interesting to me is that um, the basketball court industry has started to really incorporate this type of technology into their applications. So there's also the malls that will install wood flooring in some of the retail spaces, multifamily housing where there's multiple floors is very important. And so it's not just the residential home. And as you can see, the residential home pictured here is a very average, probably smaller home. So let's just start with the Hmbox. This is a device. Ultimately, this is just showing exactly what the product is made from. It's got a rigid ABS housing, optical function display, which are basically integrated lights. It has an alarm, sensor holes with dust filters. As you can see, I'll see if I can put my mouse over it. This hole here is measuring the ambient conditions, and then there is a hole beneath this aluminum ring that is measuring the vapor emissions coming from the concrete. Case content, screwdriver, that is to pry the device up. This is a release agent. Ultimately, when you lift up the Hmbox out of the case, you're going to apply the release agent around the aluminum ring. And then you're going to use the HM Fix, the HM Fix to basically adhere the device. And basically, you're also creating a cavity that has a seal, and that seal will basically be measuring the vapor emissions coming from the concrete. So this is what's in a case when your customer buys one of these devices. Here's the inside view of it. These are some pretty interesting renderings, as you can see, that that it has. It has the Torx T15 bit or screwdriver is what you need to remove the actual screws in this situation, and you replace it with 4 AA lithium batteries. And this device basically has been tested from 40 below zero to 140 degrees above zero. And it does include a SIM card. Now, I want everybody to understand the SIM card is similar to the same SIM card that you'd find in a cellular phone, except for that this obviously does not pick up voices. This is only a data transmission SIM card, which is a little bit different, but nonetheless, extremely important. So where do these get placed? One of the things that you'll see is that on the bottom left-hand side, we've done a lot of testing along the ASTM 2170. We're going to get into that a little bit. The ASTM 2170, basically also referred to as the in situ probe test. The in situ probe test requires the concrete substrate to be penetrated if drying from only one direction, which is typical from the top down, at 40% of the thickness of the substrate. And so what we wanted to know is we wanted to see how accurate the Hmbox was when comparing it to the in situ probe. As you'll see that some contractors use cones, some use milk crates. In Wisconsin, I often tell people we have more milk crates here than we have people, but nonetheless, it's a great device, and some guys actually will secure those milk crates down to the concrete substrate where their Hmbox is to protect the Hmbox, but also to draw attention to the other trades to make sure to watch out for it. For those of you that are going to come to the NWFA, we actually will be bringing some different devices that we have found that some contractors are using that will be extremely helpful. Let's talk about the components in concrete. I think that this is part of the changes that I've made to this presentation, because it's so very important to understand the differences of concrete. And a lot of people will refer to concrete as cement, but cement, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, is just one of the several components that makes up the concrete. But the aggregates is 60 to 75%. It's 14 to 20%, 21% water. Those aggregates come in coarse grade and fine grade. As you know, that there's a certain amount of sand in concrete as well. But one thing that we do know, as you can see, there's a core sample standing vertically there, that there are many different items that make up a concrete substrate. And I think that everyone needs to understand that. So what layers make up the substrate that you, as a contractor, are going to base your reputation on? You can see the gravel, the vapor barrier, the reinforcement rebar. We see that when we're driving, and we see guys, installing concrete on certain areas of the highway, and it's all typically the rebar is a green color, at least from what I've seen. But this is just a great picture to help people understand that the moisture vapors coming from the ground is going to basically trend through the gravel and then eventually hit a vapor barrier. But I think that one thing that really confuses the folks in Europe is a lot of architects actually require testing of the concrete no matter the age of the slab. And Europe has said to me on many occasions, why would that be? If a concrete slab is older than 3 years in Europe, we wouldn't even think about testing it. But what they may not understand is that, as the technology changes in vapor barriers and construction processes in North America, then also what changes with that is the ability to test for moisture, which obviously Hmbox is part of, but the vapor barriers and some of the construction components, prior to 1980, prior to 1970, prior to 1960, all have a different technology, and some of which that technology makes for a vulnerable slab that a wood floor contractor would install a wood floor over. So these are just a quick, brief idea of what a concrete slab is comprised of. When we're talking about drying of concrete, I think that one of the things that everyone hopefully can understand is that the slab it has to be protected from re-wetting, and the ambient conditions are conducive to drying. One of the things that the slab being protected from re-wetting, what people don't understand is that if the slab is allowed to get wet, ultimately that starts the drying process all over again. And why is that so important? Because a lot of the testing that is done currently is completely dependent on installation of your product. Now, keep in mind, it's not just wood flooring. There's a lot of different adhesives for different luxury vinyl tiles, different ceramics. Some of the moisture conditions that you find in a slab are can be detrimental even to some of the commercial sheet good products, including resilient gym floor products and resilient healthcare industry. I think Marmoleum is one of them. It's just a brand that maybe some of you have heard of. So all of which are affected by moist conditions. So we're just talking about the mounting of the Fidbox. If you guys would like, videos are found at fidbox.net or floor protector at .at. The AT stands for Austria. This is going to help you guys understand, or help your customers understand, how to place the Hmbox. As you can see, you just apply the adhesive after you've applied the release agent. Let me tell you, if the release agent wasn't there, the adhesive is extremely strong and it pulls up concrete. So that release agent makes it a little bit easier for cleanup. Where would you place this? I placed this slide in here because this is about the Fidbox. And one of the main questions that often comes up is, well, where would I put a Fidbox? And I know we're kind of switching gears a little bit, but the Fidbox is the post-installation device that gets installed in a wood floor. The Fidbox is a little bit different from the standpoint of you should have one Fidbox for every 1,000 feet, where an Hmbox is one Hmbox for every 3,500 feet. It's just a difference of how those two devices are measuring the ambient conditions. The rule of thumb, when your customers ask you, the contractor should not put a Fidbox where there's going to be heavy furniture or where there's going to be an area rug. Now, I can tell you, I went to a job. One of the things that I do as well is I'm a certified inspector of the National Wood Flooring Association, and I went to a job site, which is actually in a high-rise building. The unfortunate part is the homeowner was badly injured in an accident, so he was destined for a wheelchair for the rest of his life. And they had a beautiful condominium on the 20th floor, and they had a 5-inch red oak floor that was cupping. And the contractor had installed 2 Fidboxes. One of the Fidboxes was in a hallway where there would never be an area rug. However, in this circumstance, the area rug was placed there for the wheelchair that this homeowner was now in, and the floor was cupped throughout, which tells me often that it's an environmentally related issue, except for when you picked up the heavy mat where the Fidbox was, the floor was not cupped. And the Fidbox was reading 40%, which, as we all know, is the ideal relative humidity when you're talking about a solid wood floor. So that gives you a great indication is that the Fidbox ultimately could have warned these people. However, because the homeowner was, tragically injured and put in a wheelchair, that they put mats over the Fidbox, and is a perfect example of where a Fidbox is not going to perform the way a contractor would want it to. So when should you place the Hmbox? It's suitable for use on any substrate material, regardless of composition. Composition would be OSB, plywood, concrete. If a moisture meter that determines actual relative humidity in the substrate as well as the ambient relative moisture and temperature around the slab, do not install when the surface is very damp, as this will cause a large amount of moisture to be captured near the measuring sensors and cause high readings for an extended period. Therefore, a premature start of the Hmbox measurement is not recommended. Now, I've seen this several times, and there are rules of thumb on a concrete slab. For every inch of thickness, a 2-week amount of time should be allowed for that slab to cure. Now, keep in mind, most all slabs are 4 inches. So as you know, 2 times 4 is 8. So that would be 8 weeks before you would place an Hmbox. Gypcrete has the same rule of thumb. Therefore, Gypcrete is actually very, very light, hence the name lightweight concrete. So it has more air and more water in it. And what some guys have said is that they have found if they allowed 30 days for every inch of thickness of Gypcrete, the better. Or if that Gypcrete has radiant heat in it, to have the radiant heat turned on to basically dry that Gypcrete out faster than it would normally, and then place the Hmbox. So I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up on, you're going to hear some really kind of crazy words like qualitative versus quantitative. To help you understand, the qualitative testing is going to be like the electrical impedance or the mat bond test or the plastic film. Basically, as I've put on the definition, it's involving and relating to distinctions based on quality or qualities, whereas quantitative, which is what the Hmbox is involving or relating to considerations of amount of size or comparable and measurable data, is what calcium chloride is, which calcium chloride is going by the wayside, but the relativity or relative humidity probe is also one of those. So one of the things that your customers have to understand with the ASTM 2170 or the other testing measures on a concrete slab is they do not give you a history of the slab. They do not give you the RH value of the job site. They do not give you the data unless you go to the job site. They do not give you the temperature of the substrate if the substrate is actually equipped with a in-floor heat without using a laser thermometer. Now, one of the things I should make clear so everyone understands, the Hmbox, as excellent of a device as it is, if it's placed in an area where there's no cellular signal, you still can place it. You'll still get readings, but you will have to go to the job site and do a manual sync of the data. And then that all gets basically, once you synchronize it, it actually gets picked up by the server, as all apps do. So I wanted to just give you a kind of a brief outline of all the different ways that concrete's being currently tested. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that There are architectural specifications in a lot of commercial flooring projects where the requirement is the in situ probe test. Basically, 40% of the depth of the concrete if drying from above, or 20% when from drying from both sides. Drying from both sides typically is going to be in a multiple family housing where there are several floors, or stories to a building. So you're going to have the ability of air movement below that concrete slab and air movement above that concrete slab. So I'm not sure what happened there. There we go. Okay, so that has become basically the test of all tests, and that's what a lot of contracts. And I'm hoping that when you guys do talk with your contractors, that they look at the contractors or at the contract that they have signed, because more than likely it's going to have the requirement of the in situ probe of testing the concrete. So the disadvantages of the ASTM 2170. It's the execution of the procedure, basically meaning, what exactly. Well, first of all, I guess one of the things that I've heard from people or contractors is they'll say, well, I love the idea of the Hmbox, but is it ASTM certified? And I respond to them by saying, it's not ASTM certified. But let me ask you a bigger question is, the ASTM certification for the 2170 means you have to probe the concrete 3 times in the first 1,000 feet and 1 time every 1,000 feet after that, 3 feet from an exterior wall. So are you currently complying with the ASTM 2170 testing? And 99.9 times the contractor is going to say, well, no, but I don't, that's not as much of a concern for me. I just want a device that I know that I don't have to go to the job site and that can test the concrete for me, from my office. So the disadvantages of ASTM 2170, the sleeves used, different construction concrete, formulas of concrete, as we talked about before, the exact hole depth, whom is providing you with the overall thickness, the core test to verify. One of the things that what happens, and I've seen in court and talked with other inspectors, is that the testing of the concrete was done, but the concrete was not the actual thickness that was told by that contractor, and then that becomes kind of an issue, obviously. And then there's aggregate near the holes. How would someone know from the top down if they're getting too close during the drilling process? If they are too close to certain types of aggregate. That's one of the reasons why they ask or required to have so many drill test points on a concrete slab. And then last but certainly not least, is the dust that's left in the hole. If you do not vacuum it properly, that dust could contain some leftover particulates, which could be moisture related as well. So this is, as I've got in red there, the most requested way of testing concrete today. And most contractors are contractually obligated to comply. As we talked about, 40% of the hole depth. Hole is determined by the manufacturer's sleeve size. Holes should be placed within 3 feet of exterior walls. 3 tests for 1,000 feet, 1 for every 1,000 after. Relative humidity of 75% or below are suitable for most approved hardwood flooring. And then I put in red again, are you following your contractual obligations? Because ultimately, the biggest thing is that what people don't understand is that if this floor does fail, which if it's not tested properly and there is moisture there, all of this data and all this information comes right back to the flooring contractor. It's the adhesive manufacturer is not going to protect the flooring contractor. The wood flooring manufacturer is not going to protect the flooring contractor. And that's why this is so important for them to understand that testing, and not only just testing it, but how are you currently documenting it? With our industry, and I'm somewhat embarrassed to say, is that with our industry, when I do an inspection, I ask a contractor what his moisture readings were before he installed the wood floor, the NWFA basically recommends 20 test points of the substrate and 40 test points of the wood flooring. Not only are they not doing that, some contractors, and I've later learned that it's over 50%, do not even own a moisture meter. So one of the things that I often tell contractors, if you want to set yourself apart, then get to know our industry more and more, and it will only benefit you in the future, because when you're ending up talking with clients, you're going to be able to speak um, uh, and know what you're talking about. So this is our breaking news. One of the things that we often had heard from people and contractors is, I love the Hmbox, but you know what? You guys do not comply with the ASTM. So what they have now come out with, and I've helped Europe with all of the different manufacturers of the devices that create the sleeves, whether that be Delmhurst makes one, Wagner makes one, um, several several different companies make their own. And what Europe has come up with is the ability to now create their own sleeve, and now you would basically put the Hmbox over the top. Now, obviously, you're not going to put the Hmbox over all of the test points. On a gymnasium that is 20,000 square feet, that would require you to put down 22 test probes. You're not going to be required to do that with an Hmbox. However, to follow your contract, you should still basically follow the contract that's asking you to do the ASTM. But the Hmbox over one of those test points will allow you to monitor the job site without having to go there. And this sleeve, as you can see, will basically get drilled into the concrete, and then that ring will be placed within the Hmbox, and then that will allow the contractor to monitor the job site instead of going back out and testing it continuously until he finds that the slab is dry enough. Now, keep in mind, not every job site is next door. A 2.5 hour drive, depending on the time of day and depending on the city, can be 20 miles away for the most part. And so what we want guys to understand is that now this will comply with ASTM, and it will allow you to monitor your job site. Ultimately, you just have to go to the job site once and monitor it from there until you're ready to send out your crews. And here's the other thing too, is now that the Hmbox will have the ability to follow the ASTM requirements, it also, and I'll show you the software, it will also help you understand on how to create a PDF that will allow you to send all of the data. With the other devices, you don't necessarily have the ability to do that. So for us, this is huge news, because it's now we have the ability to provide that to the contractor. So one of the things that we do know is, and the reason why there are so many failures, is that because of, let me go back, flooring applications, one of the things that the general contractor wants to do is make sure that they just get the project done within the time that they were given. Now, you have to understand the flooring is one of the last things that go in, and with the last thing going in, as you can imagine, they're probably under some sort of time constraint, and they need to rush it. And unfortunately for the flooring contractors, they're the guys that will end up being held responsible if the floor fails. So in certain geographical areas, here's the other thing too, is if the moisture or the vapor emission coming from the concrete slab is too high, there are ways of commercial dehumidifiers to bring down the moisture from the slab. There's many different products on the marketplace too that allow the slab to have either bone dry is one of the companies that you roll on a sealer, but some sealers are not compatible with some adhesive manufacturers. So that's why it's so very important to make sure that you're reading the guidelines set by each manufacturer. Why are we doing all this? As you can see, these are just a few pictures of several moisture related. Now, keep in mind, these were all on concrete and all had failed. So whether we want to believe it or not, all of which of these floors have a tremendous amount of repair to be done, and because they were not tested, they will actually have to the contractor will have to pay for it. So that's why I put on there, this comes from the category, if I had to do it all over again category, if they had been able to understand testing of concrete and how important it is. Why measure the moisture? Contractual obligation, as I mentioned before, architects write it in the job spec. Minimize your liability, meeting the flooring manufacturer's warranty requirements. That's huge, because there is no warranty if you're not following what they've asked of you. This also brings up the vapor diffusion. I have to make sure that people understand a little bit of vapor diffusion as well. And it's funny because I have a 9-year-old daughter that just asked me the other day, which I've often been waiting for the questions to hit, but she asked me how, because we had rain for like 3 or 4 days in a row, and where does rain come from? And I think that this is a great illustration talking about how, basically water evaporates from earth in transpiration, and then it forms clouds, and then it turns into precipitation. So depending on what area of the country you are, the precipitation can also be in the form of snow. So water vapor diffusion is the movement of water through vapor permeable materials. Vapor diffusion happens through a solid material even when the material has no pores. Now, keep in mind, water vapor is water in a gaseous state, which basically is water that is evaporated, and it is invisible. As you look out, the only time you ultimately can see water vapor is when it's really foggy out, and when ultimately the environment is saturated with water. Other than that, most times the water vapor is completely invisible. So I think that's pretty important to understand what is actually happening. The drier a climate is inside is only pulling moisture from beneath. It does it with wood floors. It does it with concrete, and that's something to really understand. So vapor diffusion, there's higher vapor pressure beneath the concrete, lower vapor pressure above. As you can imagine, the amount of pressure that is below concrete is significant in comparison. So how do we measure all of this with the Hmbox? Hopefully everybody understands that the Hmbox and all the data is collected and transmitted via the cellular connection. There's the smartphone app. There's the browser, which I'm going to show you guys on how to create a report. Transmission with cellular to server happens every 12 hours with an hourly measurement interval. The apps, which I'm hoping that everyone has tried going to their app store, whether they have an iOS Apple product or an Android product. As you know, the Android is made, there's several manufacturers that have an Android platform. Either way, you can add the app. The apps are free, whether it be a Fidbox app or an Hmbox app. But as you can see on the bottom, that's the Hmbox app where there's a username and password. And then you can see the different details of what you can see on an app. And again, I can send you this presentation. So what's so important for the Fidbox and Hmbox, no matter what app you're using, one of the things that we encourage contractors to do, and I can give you several examples. There's a contractor in the Midwest that uses a work order number, and then they establish the connection for the homeowner, and then they automatically share the data with themselves. So when the homeowner does call, they can look that Fidbox up to understand what types of conditions that homeowner is facing. So to help you understand the sharing of the data, what we say is that many contractors that have project managers is that they establish the connection for the homeowner, or they can um, they can they can actually then share the data. Every project manager gets his own account, and then what he will do is he will then be able to monitor the project no matter where he is located, and that's key. That's key for any flooring contractor to stay productive and stay efficient. So you can always share the measured data with someone that has an account, which is free, and I hope that everybody understands how important that is. So when we're talking about the software can be downloaded at floorprotector.at, as you can see. The dongle you get, so when you establish a connection with the Hmbox, you do get 30 days free for software, and after that, if you a customer wants to buy or purchase the software, they would just go through the software itself, and I'll show you guys how that can be done. But we ultimately then would send you a dongle. That dongle, as you can see, is that small device that's USB. The current price, which I don't see ever changing for the software, is 125 euros, which comes out to about $138. And then the dongle, depending on what your distributor is charging, let's say it's 20 bucks or slightly over. It's not a lot of money, but it is the antenna that connects your laptop or your computer to the wireless connection and the server. So which is something that gives you all the data. So here's the software data collection. As you can see, there's several things on the top. Scales, details gives you a more precise indication of the slab itself. And then you actually will have the ability to chart it. As you can see that the raindrop is the relative humidity. The temperature on the left is looks like a small icon of a thermometer, and if you would like both, you just touch the center, which has the arrows going in both directions. Now you can also narrow the dates and what you want your when you want your information, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. But it's on the very bottom. You can stretch, and I've got a great example that will help you understand how easy it is to do. So here's the table. The red means you're over the required levels. The blue means you're under the required levels. For those of you that are in the dry climates, this is going to be a great, these are actually great devices for you to help you understand how dry or at what time you can proceed because of that dryness. And then we have the report, and I'm going to show you the report. Here's the report, the cover sheet, the chart, and then the spreadsheet. You can see the date and time stamp, and I'm going to show you all of those from the software. Now you can see the bottom icons on the software, the shop, the device, the display, the map, and then the settings. The settings is where you would start to change some of your username if you'd like, or you can change your email and who should receive it. And so with that being said, it'd be easier. Here's the map setting. This just happens to be one of the many shared devices I have. It's the map is not showing as well, but when you have shared products to your account, you can actually bring them up on this part of it, and it's under the map section right here. So now, one of the things that I have added to this as well is continuing your knowledge about our industry. There is, and like I said, anybody can check out Wood Floor Business is an additional publication that has come out. There's Hardwood Floors Magazine, the NWFA's product, and then Wood Floor Business has come out, and you can see the link where if you'd like to subscribe But one of the things that they have are tons and tons of articles about wood floor cupping. Why does it happen? What can you do? How to prevent cupping in the worst and worse in summer months. It has things to how to avoid top problems, steamy summer, cup floors, what to do on wet concrete slab. Make sure your floor is clean, dry, sound, and flat. Slab testing done right. Are you following ASTM? These are all articles that are sitting out on the wood floor business website. So I'm hoping that you guys get a chance to do that. So as we start to wrap it up, and I'm going to go to the software as soon as this gets done, but you'll see that we kind of have a theme about, is this your customer? Even though that's likely not a customer that anyone's had, it at least gives you an idea of how upset a homeowner can get. And I kind of laughed to myself because I went on an inspection. I'm probably within a couple hours of Chicago, so I have done quite a few inspections in Chicago, and this was a project that I went to that there were actually union officials at this job, and I had to take a picture because I didn't think anybody would believe me that guys were dressing in trench coats in June, but it actually happened. So one of the things that I think that hopefully you guys can understand, and this has kind of been our mantra, is that if you have all of this data, you're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to be able to dream about the big fish. You're going to be able to dream about the pickup truck. Your customers will be able to buy because they're saving money on not having to go to the job site. So just a small understanding of how much. Now this is literally just wood flooring in new construction. This is not any of the other projects or any of the other failed concrete installations of an existing building. The last year, when there was $174 million in claims, so a significant amount. So without further ado, I'm actually going to go to the software, and I'm going to show you guys how that we're going to be able to print. How we're going to be able to print. You can see my dancing FP Desktop Professional at the bottom, and I will show you guys how to actually create a report. It's really, really simple. I'd say even overly simple, but without it, and I know that last time I had some issues when I was on GoToMeeting where it did not open up as quickly as I had hoped it would. All right, there we go. Okay. Okay, so you're going to be able to see, this is my account, and you're going to see shared devices. I don't know, I'll try to highlight it up here with this hand. Shared devices for me. As you can tell, there are a lot of shared devices I have. And this is ultimately for people if they want me to create a report for them. But as you can see, it goes from Fidbox now to Hmbox. And there is an Hmbox that I have that I've got from all over. I've got Canada, Hawaii, but this one is one of my favorites. This is the one that I'll be able to show you guys how to print a report from. This is a very high-end builder in Chicago that had to have an Hmbox once he saw his distributor, and I can tell you that how I can tell that he more than likely had it in his pickup truck. So we can go back to reset zoom. Keep in mind, he's had this on since he bought it back in October. So this is the relative humidity icon right here. Well, here's temperature. Let's go to temperature. We go to temperature. Now I know when I was in the home in late October, I don't know if you guys can see that bouncing around, but it gives you a better indication. Now, watch how it goes real low and, 5 below zero. It gets to be really cold, and it's pretty simple to say that more than likely that was not in a home at that temperature, and that it's likely followed that of the temperature of the outdoors. So I have a feeling that he has this in his truck. But let's go to the table. As you can see, since October, he's had this running, and from the relative humidity standpoint, it was low when we originally checked it. And now think about all the data we're going through, and I'm going to show you how we can choose. We're still only into November. Keep in mind, it takes a reading every hour. Now I can go to the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to go to report. But first, I want to chart out only a small amount of time, and I'm going to chart out the time. As you can see, I'm dragging on the bottom. I'm going to chart out where I think that he had the lowest temperature. And I don't know if you can see that, but I am trying to get to the point where I'm only seeing the lowest of the temperatures. And as you can see, it was 7.5 degrees below zero. See how I stretched that on the bottom? Well, the same thing worked for relative humidity as well. So if I would like, I can put both of those to that same time frame, and then now I can view the relative humidity and temperature at the time of those dates. So ultimately, then we would go to report, go to create report right here, click on that, and it will create a report within the time frame that we have determined. So as you can see, it's saying generating PDF file. So this is where contractors actually will create a report, and they'll be able to send that report to their builders. So there are not just builders, but there are several guys now in the field. Here's my report here. It just popped up. So now let's look at the report. I took it from December 12th through the 25th, the time that I thought was the most egregious as far as temperatures. As you can see, I don't know if you can see my crosshairs here, but it's below zero temperature, and then here's the relative humidity. And now I've really condensed the amount of data that I have to ultimately 3 pages. I mean, ultimately maybe more than that, 4 or 5 pages, where if I had 7 pages total, you can see up here, if I had his, since the time he turned it on, it'd probably be well over 50 pages. So there are ways to create a report and find, the information that you're looking for without having to inundate somebody with that amount of information. So that kind of puts us right at 11 a.m. Central Time. I would love for you guys, if you would like this presentation, just to send me Scott at Fidbox.net, and I will get you the presentation, number one. Number two, we will be at the NWFA booth 331 next week, and hopefully you can send any and all of your customers to us. We will be able to answer their questions, and I can guarantee you with this new information about being able to follow ASTM, and I've heard from many people that once you guys can comply with the ASTM 2170, we are going to be buying many of them from you. So as from one sales guy to the next, if that is the case, I think that you guys need to talk with your customers and tell them that it would now be an appropriate time to investigate it further, because they're going to be able to actually have the ability to follow the ASTM 2170. If you have any other questions, please, again, just send it to Scott at Fidbox.net. If not, I will sign off.